Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 73 of the Daily List Report. We've got a guest on the show today, Shiva. We haven't had him on in ages. He is our director of customer growth, but he is also a real estate agent. And we're going to talk a little bit about the current inventory shortage. We're going to talk about some of the new rules that are in place as a result of COVID and some of the challenges that that's creating. And we're also going to talk about what you should be doing right now to reach out to your sphere of influence to make sure that they are educated on what's going on right now and what steps they need to take. You're watching this right now on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe. You know what? I'm going to be honest. I always mess that word up. Make sure that you subscribe and then click the bell for notifications to make sure that you are notified whenever we have a new episode. We've got a ton of great content there. Make sure you go ahead and you check that out. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on Rod Shiva. Rod, say good morning to the agentpreneurs of ListReports.
Good morning, agentpreneurs. So excited to be back.
It's great to have you back, Rod. It has been far too long. So again, Rod is our director of customer growth, and he spends all day, every day, making sure that all you agents out there are super delighted with the products that we are offering you and make sure that you understand how to use them and that you're not finding any problems and you're, again, maximizing the tools that we have. But he is also a real estate agent, and he sold lots of properties, and he has a great perspective and a tremendous amount of empathy for our customers. So, Rod, why don't we start here, right? So there's a lot obviously going on in the world. We talk about this seemingly every day, but one of the things that keeps coming back up is that generally speaking, there has been a massive shortage of inventory. There's just not a lot of inventory. In fact, Realtor.com came out with their weekly housing trends view and says that year over year, total inventory is down 30%. So that's pretty massive, right? Total listings down year over year, 30%. New listings are down 17% year over year, right? So we were talking about the traditional spring boom of listings maybe shifting a little bit, and we're seeing listings come back onto the market. But in most places, there's just not a lot of inventory. So Rod, as you look at the market and you think about this with your realtor hat on, what does that mean for the current environment, and what should our agents be doing as a result of that?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's a interesting time altogether, and that exact situation that we're running into is kind of being fed from different areas. In one side, you have kind of the apprehensive sellers who don't really want to put their home on the market, are taking a look at everything going on and like, oh, maybe let's do it a little bit later. And then on the other side of it, you have buyers that are becoming more informed about our historically low interest rates, and their mentality is, how can I not take advantage of this? So across the US, you can't really keep up when knowing that you have some people that are holding back on what would be the inventory that would hit the market, and then the people that are just like, let me borrow this cheap money and get in. This is my opportunity. So what this is creating is a very, very interesting, marketplace that is probably the most dynamic and almost unpredictable in nature on both sides that we've seen in a really long time over here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. AJ and I last Monday talked about sort of the peaks and valleys, right? The ups and the downs, and that's what's happening right now, right? We're seeing it with COVID, right? We sort of shut down and then opened up maybe a little bit too early, and now the cases are rising, so we're shutting down again, and so it's this up and down, and it's extremely unpredictable. And I think you're right; that's created a fair amount of uncertainty across the board. But Rod, if you were sitting with a prospective seller, right, or on Zoom or however you want to do this, and they're sitting there and they're looking at you, they're saying, okay, Rod, I just don't know. Like, I don't know if I should be selling right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the future holds. So maybe I'm just going to wait. What are you saying to them? What advice are you giving them?
Right now, specifically, and we really, in many cases, can't advise on this, but if I had the magic 8 ball, I would be saying that there is no chance that they'd be getting more money later down the line than what they get right now.
Right.
And the reason for that is you have kind of everything being propped up right now by these low interest rates, right? It's just pushing things higher and higher and higher and higher. You have the low inventory. You want to be a part of the low inventory if you're even thinking about listing, because if and when everything does calm down a little bit, all of the inventory surges on. Well, then now you have an abundant amount of supply. Maybe it's also not propped up by the low interest rates. That's a lot more competition. That's kind of teetering more into the buyer gaining a lot more power. So I think in the grand scheme of things, as you're seeing the instability of the stock marketplace, the inventory levels, the unknowns with COVID, that going into elections, all these things kind of say that it makes sense to be a part of the low supply, capitalize on the low interest rates now, not later, because you probably won't get as much. What we can expect across probably all of the inventory is some level of correction that's going to occur right when things are kind of calming down and we've passed certain milestones in what we're all kind of working through here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So Eric Mitchell from Gold Star was on last Thursday, and that was his number one thing to do, right? If you're an agent, is yes, you have buyers, and that's fine. Service your buyers, but get after those listings, which means reaching out to the people within your sphere, making sure that they understand exactly, Rod, I think what you just said, right? Because people are focused on a lot of different things right now, and I think we take for granted sometimes the fact that our consumers, our homeowners that are within our sphere, maybe don't understand this at the same level, right? They may not understand that there's an inventory shortage. We talk about it every day and it's like, oh my God, here they go again. No inventory. I get it. That's fine. But maybe the sellers don't. And so when you talk with them and you say exactly what you said, Rod, which is, I can't imagine a better time given where prices are at, inventory low, rates. I mean, people funding below 3%. I mean, that's insane, right? Which allows people to buy more house to spend more money. That's a message that you have to get out there. And Rod, when you think about getting that message out there, yes, you have the inbound, somebody in your sphere says, hey, I'm thinking about selling. But, in this kind of environment, how do you think about getting that message out there? Is it email? Are you holding webinars? Like, what kinds of things might you be doing right now to drive listing business?
I think I'd be just talking to the entire sphere of influence that I have. I mean, in general, your referrals are probably for any agent that's doing a high amount of transactions, they're going to tell you the referral base is critical. So I think it's important to kind of have a reason to talk to everyone in your sphere of influence. There's no guarantee you're going to talk to someone that are like, oh yeah, I'm ready to sell right now. But I think there's incremental moments where you're able to add value, and the ripple effect from your referrals and things like that are just going to naturally feed you. So for example, right now, a perfect a reason to contact someone without saying, hey, I want you to sell your home, would be to check in on them throughout everything that's going on. And then also one thing I'd be doing right now is I'd be letting them know we have historically low interest rates. And probably some families that you served in the past, they have no intention on leaving anywhere. But when was the last time that you actually added value to them as an agent, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good time to inform them that rates are low, and maybe they should just check in and see if it makes sense to refinance for them, because the average person doesn't have intimate knowledge of how compound interest works, and that rates have just literally collapsed over the last year and a half, 2 years. And maybe over the lifetime of their loan, they can save 100, 200, 300,000.
Yeah.
This is major money we're talking about. And I think even as an agent, even though we can't really talk about the lending aspect, adding that value to someone's life is going to be the thing that's going to lead to your next referral and them gaining high levels of trust, referring the next people downstream, their family, friends, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. It's a really good point, Rod. And this idea of reaching out to your sphere. So a couple thoughts, right? One is on yesterday's show, we had a top agent, Herman Chan. This guy has done over $600 million in sales. He has a $25 million listing right now. And he's very successful, obviously. But one of the things we talked about, and I'm going to mess this stat up again, so don't quote me on this, but it's like 10, 15% of your customers will use you again because 6, 7, 8, 9 years later they don't remember who you are, right? In many cases they don't
Right.
even know your name anymore, and it's because most agents don't do a good job of being relevant and staying top of mind through that process. So when they're ready to go, they're like, I'm going to call Rod, no question, I'm calling Rod. So what you're talking about, Rod, is absolutely a great opportunity to reach out and talk about refinance opportunities. But frankly, I feel like there's a lot of things to talk about right now, right? People who are even sort of higher in the funnel but considering selling maybe are just uninformed. They're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to have an open house and I'm going to have 30 people walk through my house right now. No way I'm doing that, right? So I imagine that there's a fair amount of ignorance, natural ignorance. You wouldn't expect them to know these things that maybe are keeping them on the fence. And maybe these are also ways to educate them and inform them so they understand that, look, we can do virtual tours, right? We can bring somebody in only when they're very serious. We're not going to have randos walk into your house on a Sunday afternoon, right? So I feel like, to your point, Rod, there's a lot of opportunities to reach out and frankly, a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if someone is even tempted on or considering selling to capitalize, timing's right, 2 years has gone by, they have a surge of equity, they the environment today is something that has a lot more serious buyers that are out there. There's not a lot of looky-loos that are out there. In many cases, at least here locally, it's very customary now to ask for the PED form, pre-approval up front. You know that there's a good buyer if they're even taking the time out to fill out proper forms and show you that they're qualified to get in there. So I think if they do that, and that generally speaking, like buyers aren't going and looking at 50 things right now, on the weekend and just piling them up, then you get maybe an opportunity to kind of cash out and leverage that into something a little bit different. You might be able to sell now, and if the rates continue to kind of get lower, maybe you can actually get out of your first house that maybe wasn't your dream home, and maybe find yourself in an opportunity to actually get in there right around the corner.
Yeah.
So if it does make sense, ultimately, just speaking from personal experience, kind of owning four different homes, it takes a while to find out maybe where the right opportunities are to leverage in and out of things to get to ultimately where you want to be. And what that's the whole purpose of real estate, at least in my eyes, is to help people with their journey and get them to exactly where they want to be for themselves, for their family, for their legacy, and everything else.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, right? That is the point, right? That is what agents do all day, every day, right? Is help somebody achieve their dreams, their goals, right? For themselves, their families, or whatever matters to them. Rod, you said something that I think is interesting, right? Which is we're in a market right now because of COVID, frankly, where people who might normally, and I know a lot of people like this, I'm sure you do too, on the weekends go to open houses just to look around, right? People like to look at houses. It is a hobby for a lot of people. And that hobbyist behavior creates opportunities for agents, at least it did, in the form of the open house to be able to generate prospective leads, whether they're looky-loos and they're not going to buy for years, or they're, a little bit early in the process just feeling things out. And frankly, that opportunity has disappeared, right? So how do you think about that? And feel free, Rod, you work at ListRapport. We can talk about some of our own products here as well, right? But I think the point is that the traditional lead capture mechanism of an open house, or I don't know, a pizza party for a little league team, whatever the things are, right? Those things have sort of gone away. So how do you look at continuing to fill that funnel with new people?
I think you have to be really aggressive in just putting yourself out there. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that what you're describing is probably my MO. It's what, a little bit of my secret sauce is finding a way to pack an open house with a ton of foot traffic by making it very attractive. I've actually had like an actual East Coast pizza person, yeah, there as well.
Really?
Oh yeah, and so that stuff does work, and I think really what that does is that creates a little bit of a pressure cooker environment, and the actual relevant buyers tend to put a more competitive offer that's out there. I've seen that like multiple times. Most of the listings kind of have gone over ask in that respect. With that said, though, right now you don't get foot traffic. That just
Right.
doesn't exist. So you're gonna have to make it, and you're not gonna make it by having people actually show up at your house. You're gonna make it by putting yourself out there as much as you can. So to give you an idea, I think the List Reports product allows you to do that in a lot of different ways. Like a couple perfect examples. One, every single homeowner that you know right now, you should be setting them up on a My List Report alert. And it's a good conversation piece to always stay top of mind with any homeowner that you know, period, where once a month it sends them a nice report about their home, how much equity they have in, what cash out options look like, what refinance options look like, Airbnb value, rental values. So once a month, you're adding value to their life, and you never know what the ripple effect's going to be. And you can talk to every homeowner about that right now. Another
Absolutely.
big thing,
Hey, Rod, real quick, just since you
yeah,
mentioned that, I'm just going to pull it up real quick. So I just have it on
yeah,
screen. This is a sample of a My List report, right? Where you have for a homeowner the estimated value of the home, the change in value, the estimated equity, refinance opportunities, right? Cash you may be able to add to your wallet, and all of the detail there. What you've paid so far towards principal, towards interest, other rate information. If you paid, $100, $150 more a month, you would save this much in interest over the life of your loan. How much could you rent your house for? How much could you get on Airbnb, and so on and so forth. So it's a really nice report that gets emailed once a month. It can be set up in the My Leads section of List Report. So you can go into My Leads and you can set that up easily there. And we can post a link to a knowledge base article on exactly how to do that.
yeah.
So go ahead, Rod, but great point.
And Randy, if I may, one thing, it just to speak about that specific product versus other communications, I think from an agent, the really, really important thing to summarize is the fact that all of that information in the My List Report alert is actually welcomed by the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Homeowners love that information. They're actively seeking it out. Now you can automatically give it to them. That's a lot better than baking recipes and DIY ideas and things like that. So
Absolutely.
I definitely want to throw that out there. And then I'd say just another really important one is utilize your shareables. Those are social media shareable assets that are already have pre-made captions. If you want to take advantage of those, you can put them on any social media forum, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or anywhere else. And it's a great way of staying top of mind with anybody that is in your social media networks, which for one, if you're not making noise right now, well, the reality is that these consumers, they know two or three agents, and the one who's going to be top of mind when they're ready to take action, or when their friend or colleague asks them if they know someone in the industry, that has to be you. So you want to share those to make sure that you're top of mind. And beyond that, there's some of them have deliberate call to actions. It explains different benefits of home ownership. It has seasonally relevant things. It's going to help people be more informed. And when you're helping to guide people, you're really going to be making a high impact. And those are just two simple tools amongst the things that we've got over here that you can
Sure.
definitely stay relevant
Well,
at all times.
it's a good point though. Excuse me, Rod, on the shareables, right? What we've tried to do is make it really easy, right? Like your social media is done, it takes you 90 seconds, 60 seconds, right? Click, copy, share, done. But that's
Yep.
critical, right? Because that is the yeoman's work, so to speak, of an agent, which is you don't really have an option but to leverage multiple channels to be out there on a regular basis, because even if somebody doesn't like it, even if somebody doesn't comment on it, even if somebody doesn't like say, oh my God, I want to sell my home,
Right.
it's that brand awareness and that recognition. Like, oh, Rod, because here's the thing, and it's hard to think about from a consumer's perspective, right? Right now, if I look at the last agent I used to buy a house, I don't even know if he's still an agent, right? Like there's a
Right.
decent chance he's not even still an agent, even if I remembered in this case his name, right? And
Right.
so this kind of regular presence is really critical, and finding ways to be relevant, to add value, right? But to build that brand over time, I think is pretty critical.
Completely. Completely.
Um, Rod, last question, only because we touched on this kind of at the beginning when we opened the show, is there there are some more asks right now, right? As a result of COVID. In fact, AJ and I on Monday were talking about a story from Inman, the 9 new sort of truths, right, of a listing. And one of them is simply that some sellers are a little bit, they're uncomfortable, right? And there's some additional expenses that may be factored in. So let me give you an example. I wasn't being very eloquent there, right? So traditionally, you might have the home inspector come in, and then, oh, you need to do some repairs. So you got the painter come in, and the carpet guy, and the handyman, right? And what happens, like, if you have people come into your house, do you have to have it cleaned after every time? Who bears the expense of that? So there's some interesting things around, disclosures. AJ talked about on Monday a house he looked at where he had to sign a form before he went in, right? So there's extra process and things in this. Any thoughts or comments on that? I mean, it's one of those other things that I think an agent needs to be able to educate a prospective seller on, right? Is there anything in that stands out to you that's interesting?
I just think in terms of the seller, it's really about making them informed about the changes in their local areas. So, a lot of the prep work that we're talking about, filling out certain disclosures, such as the locally here, it's the PED form. There's a sign that needs to be up before people even enter the house. There's a limited number of people that can be in the home at any one point in time. Wearing gloves, masks, booties. So I think a key thing for anyone who's considering selling, one thing to discuss is just what these changes are, because in their mind, they might already have a preconceived notion about how things should go. And you might need to operate things a little bit differently. Like maybe a seller has an expectation that staging is going to occur. Is the most um, may not be the best decision right now. Maybe it's a time where virtual staging probably makes a
Yes.
lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's less people coming in and out, healthier, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, if I was going to summarize it, is, just making them be as informed as possible. Let them know that what type of things they can expect with the process. But still, I'd say the most important thing from an agent is just to tie everything back in, is letting them know that it's still a good time to sell, despite the
Yes.
challenges and the extra workarounds that agents going to have, and provide in their services. There's still an incredible time to capitalize. We want to do it right now. We don't want to do it in 5-6 months where there's going to be less to capitalize on.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Rod, we did it. I think we'll wrap with that. Thank you so much for joining today, Rod. Thank you for providing your
My
insight as
pleasure.
both a list reporter and as an agent. I think it's a very unique perspective.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you again real soon, Rod. Thanks.
All right.
Well, there you have it. That was a great perspective. One of the things that AJ and I talked about on Monday is this idea that over the last decade, at this point, frankly, so many tools and services have come to market that have eroded either certainly the perceived value of an agent, or in some cases, some of the actual value. And that this is such an interesting time, right? Because I can't imagine going through this process right now during this time without an agent. So this is such a great opportunity for all of you out there to reestablish your authority and your expertise and your knowledge, right? And your role as a guide, as we talked about with Mary Maloney, as a guide, as your imperfect hero, your seller or your buyer goes through the process of a transaction. So what an amazing time, frankly, for you to reestablish the value that you provide during this process, during this complicated process, and especially during this time. So take that advice. It's really interesting. It's really awesome. And until tomorrow, be safe, be healthy, be happy, and we'll see you soon.